welcome to the Animal Free Labcast, everybody. I'm back with Dr. Gemma Davis again. Happy New Year, Gemma. How are you?
Hi, Carla. Happy New Year to you as well. And I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I think we can just about still say Happy New Year for this is the last day. Yeah.
Well, it's the first episode of the year, so yeah, we can get away with it, I think.
It'd be rude not to say it.
Exactly.
Anyway, what have we got coming up today? We digress already. What have we got coming up today, Gemma?
Well, we're going to be joined by Josh Abram, who is a trainee research technician at our Animal Replacement Centre of Excellence, or ARC 1.0, which is at Queen Mary University of London. And he's working with Dr. Adrian Biddle. So really interesting to hear about what he's up to there. But before that, we've got lots to talk about, actually.
So much to talk about.
Yeah, so I just want to start by saying as well, thank you so much to everybody who completed our podcast survey. We had a lot of really useful feedback, some really lovely comments as well. So thank you so much to everybody who took the time to do that for us. And we will go through all the feedback and try and make the podcast as interesting and useful as possible going forward. So thank you so much, everyone.
We'll make it even better. Even better.
That's it.
We don't have a poll question last time because last episode was the bloopers. Not that there were many to choose from. I think we've got some from today already as well. Anyway,
yeah, I think so, yeah.
What's been on your mind, Gemma? We've got a couple of things to talk about, haven't we? So where should we start?
Yeah, well, let's talk about how we've been shortlisted for the Lush Prize, which is very exciting.
Yay!
So, yeah, I know.
Twice.
So I think, a lot of people will be familiar with Lush, the shop, who, their whole company is against animal testing. But a lot of people might not be familiar with what the Lush Prize is. So if you haven't heard of this, it is the largest prize fund in the non-animal testing sector. And the overall prize fund is £250,000. And that is split between different initiatives which are, aiming to end or replace animal testing. So we're really excited because we've been shortlisted in 2 different categories. So our recombinant antibody and mimetics database has been shortlisted in the training category. So that's really exciting. That's amazing recognition to show how that can really support researchers to replace animals in their work. So fingers crossed for that.
And we've got a podcast episode all about that with Stephanie Modi, so from last year. So yeah, if you want to know more about
want to learn more about that, listen back to that. Yeah, definitely. And then the other shortlisting is for our Herbie's Law work, which is in the political advocacy category. So we're really excited for that, keeping everything crossed. So we'll find out in May who the winners are. So please do keep your fingers crossed for us. We'll let you know who wins.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Yeah. Well, beautiful segue from Herbie's Law to some more Herbie's Law. Because we've got big news this week. We have had a debate in Parliament on Wednesday, so that's the 28th of January. MPs held a debate on the serious non-compliance incidents in UK animal laboratories. So it's quite hard to get a debate in Parliament. We've been trying for a while. And we worked closely with Labour MP Michael Wheeler to secure this debate. And he talked about legally sanctioned animal suffering. So this is the suffering that by law is that's what kind of the law is for. It's to kind of sanction the suffering of animals. And so the debate was around what happens when the system that's meant to protect those animals and, protect is sort of used loosely here because we are legally sanctioning animals to suffer. But what happens when that system lets those animals down and they suffer even more than they were meant to?
Yeah. That's right. So the debate focused on the Home Office's Animals in Science Regulation Unit. So that's the ASRU abbreviation, their latest annual report. So it's listed in that report 146 cases of non-compliance with either the conditions of a licence or the law that were found in 2024. And these cases involved over 22,000 animals only in British labs. And we've done some analysis on that report, and we've calculated that at least 542 animals either died or had to be killed as a direct result of those failures. So it's awful.
So that's over and above what was already allowed in the license, and what is already allowed in the licenses is awful. So this is where it's going really bad. So we're not going to go into all those details, but because we're going to have a special episode to unpack what is happening in laboratories properly next time. And Gemma, I know you've read the report, and it's not lovely reading, is it? It's pretty grim.
No, there's a lot of really upsetting things in there, but it's important to know because this is the reality.
Absolutely. But I think the key message from MPs in Parliament on Wednesday was clear. These aren't trivial paperwork mistakes. They represent a system that is repeatedly failing the animals who are trapped inside it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, in the debate, they highlighted how weak the enforcement of the law currently is. And they talked about how 3/4 of the non-compliance cases were only given inspector advice, which is the lightest response that the regulator can give in response to one of these incidents. But also they brought up how only 68 establishments were actually audited in 2024 and only 10 of those were unannounced. So you can see how that raises really serious questions about, you know, what is happening that we don't know about, what isn't in these reports, and how much are animals suffering because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But MPs also talked about sort of, you know, some hope for the future. And MPs did also talk about the government's new replacing animals in science strategy to phase out the use of animals in science over time. And, you know, regular listeners will know that it's a starting point. Our perspective is that it needs to go further. But, you know, this is kind of the background mood music, is that human specific technologies are getting better and better all the time. And they really are, you know, going to be able to deliver better, more relevant results without using animals.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so important that that is brought to the forefront of everything that we're talking about. And that is where Herbie's Law comes in. So in the debate, several MPs called for Herbie's Law to be introduced without delay. And as regular listeners will know, Herbie's Law would commit the UK to replacing animals in medical research by 2035, but also offer that, you know, essential support for scientists through that transition to these technologies to make sure that they are implemented properly. And Herbie's Law has already been backed by over 150 MPs, and it obviously has the strong support of all of our supporters and everyone. So, you know, that's a really positive step that we just need to keep moving forward with.
I think we just need to take a minute as well to celebrate the 150 MPs are now backing Herbie's Law. I mean, there's only 650 of them altogether. I probably banged on about this last year, but it's incredible. Also, just from a personal perspective as well, when Michael Wheeler mentioned Herbie, it's just had me welling up. Bless him. Yeah, Michael Wheeler's my new hero.
He did a fantastic job.
He was amazing. Yeah. I think also what was really good to see was that the Home Office Minister who was there speaking on behalf of the Home Office and on behalf of the government, so that's Sarah Jones MP, it sounded to me like she was listening. So obviously she confirmed the government's ambition is to end the use of animals in science, and that's what the new strategy is meant to do. It's meant to accelerate the replacement of animals. She hasn't committed to a clear timeline or to Herbie's Law. But she did recognise the need for timelines, and she committed to going back to colleagues to look at how these can be set out within the government strategy. So I think that felt like a bit of a shift. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really positive step. It is a bit of a turning point because Parliament is openly acknowledging both the shocking failures in this current system and the potential of these alternatives. So, you know, the Minister has actually gone further there than we've ever really heard before. So it's really exciting. So in our next episode, as we mentioned, we'll have our Director of Public Affairs, Isabel Martin, with us, and we will have a deep dive further into what those non-compliance cases actually look like and what does need to change to protect animals, but also lead to benefits for patients.
Yeah. But before then, ... we have just found out we've got another debate. They're a bit like London buses. They're a huge amount of work to get, aren't they? So, Gemma, tell us about that.
Couldn't make it up.
No.
Yeah, so we've just found out that Seamus Logan, MP, has also been able to secure a further debate in Parliament for us. And this time it's going to be specifically on this Animals in Science Regulation Unit, or ASRU, report. So this is a really big deal. You know, it's so difficult, like you say, to get one of these debates. And it's just unbelievable that we've got two, you know, in the space of a week. You know, it's incredible.
I know, I'm a bit speechless. I've been doing this for 18 years now. Yeah. You don't get two debates in 2 weeks. It's just
exactly.
Yeah. It's very exciting.
So this is a huge opportunity to bring attention to this and to also make the case of why Herbie's Law is so important and why we need it now.
Yeah. Absolutely. So a huge thanks to Michael Wheeler for being my new hero, for leading the debate. He was so fantastic. And also to all of the other MPs who took part. So Irene Campbell, she leads the all-party parliamentary group on phasing out animal testing, which we helped to coordinate. Steve Race MP, who has been on the podcast before, you'll have heard of us talking about him. He put down the Herbie's Law bill as a private member's bill. Thank you also to Brian Leishman and to Jim Shannon for speaking out. They all did. Obviously, if you want to help, you can share this episode, you can ask your MP to back Herbie's Law, you can support our work, and you'll find out how to do that on our website, which is animalfreeresearchuk.org.
Okay, so let's introduce Josh Abram, who is our trainee research technician at the Animal Replacement Centre of Excellence. Welcome, Josh.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm a research technician trainee with Dr. Adrian Biddle's lab. It's a little bit different I guess, if we think of the work of a standard research technician, which is they're kind of the backbone of the general lab's work. They help through multiple different projects. Yeah, essentially the backbone. I'm quite lucky. I get to have my own project. Yes. So
that's exciting.
So yeah. So my project is working on quite a new type of technology, which is peptide hydrogels. Essentially, it's kind of a way to culture cancer cells in 3D rather than the conventional 2D. So I guess as a brief overview, I work with oral cancer or oral squamous cell carcinoma. And the most important point relevant to my project is that these cancers often, in around 50% or more of patients, metastasize or migrate to the lymph nodes in the closest lymph nodes, called the tumor draining lymph nodes. And the conventional way of kind of trying to understand this is through in vivo work or mouse work, which all of us know is not the most useful work that you can do with cancer. So my project is trying to kind of introduce a way to replace the use of animals with these types of gels. Previous to my joining of the lab, a PhD student did manage to get the peptide hydrogel model kind of up and running. So now I get to use it to kind of model the lymph nodes without the need for animals, essentially.
So is your research then, Josh, looking at the role that the lymph nodes have to play in the spread of cancer, of oral cancer?
Yeah, essentially, we're kind of in the early stages of what we're trying to use the peptide gels for. And that depends on how well we have mimicked the lymph node in the gel before we can answer certain questions. So right now, I'm essentially adding extracellular tissue components, so the components that normally surround the cells. I'm adding certain components that increase in the lymph node to see how that can kind of draw the cancer cells in, to understand what it is about lymph nodes in these patients that's kind of telling the cancer cells, come here. So right now, that's what I'm doing. In the future, if I kind of improve the model, I want to know how the cells are changing the lymph node itself. So kind of back and forth, kind of crosstalk, essentially.
Fascinating.
That's really interesting, yeah. And could you explain for us very briefly just what a peptide hydrogel is?
Yeah. It sounds quite complex, but essentially, a peptide is just a sequence of amino acids that and a bunch of these form a protein. But what this gel uses is essentially it's kind of a repeating sequence of amino acids, Fe, etc., and they're very small sequences. And then once you add water and you incubate in certain conditions, these peptide sequences, they form a nanofiber. So they just self-assemble into a gel. And these sequences, they're not reactive, so the cells don't respond to it. So it's very kind of, the cells behave as they normally would. It doesn't change the behavior of the cells. And the reason that the lab uses these gels is there's two really big benefits that you don't see in other kind of new and upcoming technologies. They're optically clear, so it's really easy to see the cells throughout the entire depth of the gel, which is great for understanding invasion. And another is it's degradable, so you can essentially melt away the gel and then retrieve those cells and do a bunch of other stuff with it. So it's very diverse in its applications.
Amazing. So this is for the lay people in the room. This is like the goo that you're growing your cells in so that the cells can live outside of a body.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. So
for the people with a child's understanding of science.
The goo. Yeah, that's definitely better than my explanation. Yeah.
It really isn't.
But kind of why that's so important is usually this goo, comes from a sort of animal-derived products, doesn't it? And that can have an effect on how your human cells are going to grow. So this is really amazing to replace it with something that is animal-free.
Sorry to interrupt. But if you think of, there are other labs who are using these 3D gels, but one of them is called matcha gel. And
I've heard of
matcha gel.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the same. It's essentially the goo, but as Gemma said, this is animal derived. And so while it could theoretically perform the same function as the gels I'm using, in patients, these cells are not in different animal derived conditions. They're in human only conditions. And so those kind of gels do really limit the kind of data that is relevant to patients.
Yeah. So is the gel that you're using, the peptide sequence that you're using, is that kind of more similar to what would be inside a patient's body?
Not exactly. So the way that these peptides are is they were essentially coded to have the least reactivity to cells. So if we wanted to make these sequences similar to what would be in the body, the cells would be reacting. So it's essentially a blank canvas. The cells can interact with it, but it doesn't change their native behavior.
Okay, so it's like it's like a control then. It means that the cells aren't doing something because of it.
That's a key point. So obviously if we want to test different conditions, we want the basic condition to obviously not induce anything. So then we know that certain responses is because of something else we've added. Okay, so then you can really start to understand what is happening because you know that nothing would be happening at a baseline. Yes.
I've got it now.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, it just helps you understand that what you're seeing is because of the cancer cells and not something that's coming from that animal-derived product that's telling those cells to do something. So, that's really important.
Exactly.
Really interesting. So tell us a little bit about you then, Josh. So why did you want to have a career in science? What was it that interests you?
My kind of journey to science is a bit different. So obviously the usual is you do your A-levels and you do it in science, you go to uni, yada yada. I didn't quite do that. I did my A-levels in the humanities. So I did it in philosophy.
Yay! That's one.
So I did it in philosophy, religion, and geography.
Quite different from science.
Quite different, yes. But I really, really enjoyed it actually. So I thought, I'll go to uni. I'll do philosophy and religion as a degree. But there was kind of personal things that happened during that time, and I think I was feeling a bit, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I left. I dropped out. Then for around 3 years, I was finding myself, essentially figuring out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then I kind of thought back as to what I really actually enjoyed in school, and it was actually always science. But I think when it got to A levels, I kind of lost confidence. I was thinking, oh, I'll pick the easier subjects. They're not easier by any means. They're not. That was my mistake. Yeah, but that was kind of the logic at the time. So I thought, I'll go back to uni. I'll try science.
Yeah.
So I did what's called a foundation year, which just kind of gives you 1 year super intense. You learn the basics of biology, chemistry, and then I was successful with that. And then I went to uni and I did biochemistry, and that after that it was quite smooth sailing. I felt like I was in the right place. I felt there was so many things interesting me. I did go towards cancer, but there's cancer involves so many different areas of biology, so this always keeps my interest. Yeah.
So you've found your path now.
Oh yeah. If I even think about leaving science, I'm like, I don't know what I would do.
Oh,
that's good.
Yeah, that's so important to make sure you're doing what's right for you, and kind of having that strength to drop out if you don't think it's the right thing, and thinking about it and going back to it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I was terrified. Obviously, I was a student with no money, no job. I was like, oh my god, I'm a failure. But I just started from the bottom, built myself back up, and I did what felt natural. So I just followed what felt like the right thing to do, and it led me here. So
yeah, that's
I think there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, when when you're still really young to make decisions that are going to affect the rest of your life. So well done for you for kind of being like, what, I didn't make quite the right decision there, and you've course corrected, and you've got yourself back on track. It's brilliant. Josh, what made you want to do animal-free research? Why Adrian's lab?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a scientist, there's two angles. One of it is well, I guess for everyone, the ethical considerations around the use of animals. I guess before I even joined science, I kind of thought at the time, I thought, oh well, animal research is a given. That's the best thing that scientists have access to. But now that I'm in academia, I'm in science, I don't really think that's the case anymore. And so it kind of makes the suffering of these animals seem like it's not really necessary. If it's a case that if there was a world in which animal research was the only thing we had access to, then I could at some degree understand. But we have so many tools and innovations now, like the work that I'm very lucky to be a part of, that makes me think like, do you really need all of these animal research? And not even in cancer, in so many things, cosmetics. So it just, on the ethical, I think the fact I'm in science now has kind of made that ethics kind of consideration even more apparent to me, because I know that we have other alternatives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what do you think the most exciting opportunities for change are then? How do you see research changing in the future now that you're in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best case scenario, which I think we're on the path to, is to having these kind of in vitro models, so cell models, human tissue models, these gel models. I think in the future we can really improve these models, so we can provide us with the benefits of in vivo work in vitro, which just means animals and without animals, essentially. So, I mean, if you think about in vivo work, it does provide you benefits. You have access to a full organism, the circulation, crosstalk between organs. But if we can build these organs or these organ models in vitro, and you can connect them with I guess media or circulation, you're essentially eventually going to replace the need for those animals, and that's very exciting for me. I think for me, I'm really interested in kind of migration from one area to another of cancer, and if we can really have like organs made in a lab and you can connect them, you have no need for animals, and so that's really exciting. But I think that's quite a long way away. What I think is kind of the best thing for labs to do now is start from the ground. So start from replacing these common kind of reagents like FBS, which is just kind of the nutrients that we use in the lab for the cells. That's animal derived, but we have other things now. We have human platelet lysate, which essentially just has the same things, but it's human derived. So it's these kind of basic things that almost every lab uses that actually drives the use of animals, because there's so much demand. So if we can kind of replace these, replace antibodies which are produced by animals, so we have recombinant antibodies, which is a big thing for you guys and your database. I think to start there it's not only easier, that probably removes the bulk requirement of animals in research.
Thanks for mentioning the database. We've just been shortlisted for a Lush Prize for that. Very pleased.
Yeah, so excited. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So actually, speaking of Lush, you came along to an event that we did, that we went to with Lush in Parliament in December. How was that? You got the opportunity to talk to MPs and journalists and things. How did you find that?
Yeah, I mean, before I went, I was so scared. I thought, oh my God, there's so many important people there. Oh my God. But everyone was so friendly. I think the atmosphere in the room was so optimistic.
Yeah.
So everyone was in a great mood, and I think one thing for me that was super interesting is I guess as a scientist, you feel like you're in your own bubble sometimes, just the research bubble. But actually hearing from the public, how much they appreciate the type of work, the animal-free work that we do, that gave me wow, people are actually listening. They understand the importance of this work. And that gave me a lot more kind of motivation to keep doing this research in the future if I was to go on, hopefully, to do a PhD. Is that kind of public response that really kind of drives me to just keep improving, keep working on it. So that was a great experience.
I have to share, one of the highlights of my year was at that event. Josh and Adrian and I were talking to a journalist, and Lush had produced these soaps in the shape of an organ on a chip. Yeah. And Adrian demonstrated to the journalist how the organ on a chip works by holding the soap and showing her. It was brilliant. He had quite soapy hands at the end, but it was really good.
The soap was actually so good. Accurate.
Yeah, they were. They really were.
Well done, Lush.
Yeah. Smells nice too.
It did smell nice. Yeah. So, what's on the horizon for you next, Josh? Where do you go from now?
Yeah. So I'll be continuing this job and this role until October of this year, and then hopefully I'll go on to do a PhD. I've been
Fingers crossed.
I've been I'm hopefully at the end of my application cycle, so I think this week I should get some responses, which is exciting. And all of those projects are on animal-free research, so
fantastic.
I am very kind of dedicated to staying in this type of research. So hopefully I get some good news this week.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Josh. It's lovely to speak with you, and just so encouraging, I think, for us and for people listening at home to kind of hear from the kind of one of the bright stars of the future, and the people that's going to make animal-free research the new normal.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been so fun. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's all we have time for in this episode, but we will be back in a fortnight with Gemma, obviously, and also with Isabel for an in-depth analysis of the latest report on animal welfare failings in laboratories. And also, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this next debate in Parliament, which is happening next week. But before then, Gemma, this week's poll question. What have we got?
Yep. Well, just thinking about Josh and all the amazing work that's been done at our animal replacement centres. The question is, would you like to see more of these animal replacement centres or ARCs around the UK? yes or no. So you can vote on our website, and you can find the link to that either in our podcast email or in the links in the bio of our social media. And we will discuss the results in the next episode. But if you'd like to get in touch and tell us your thoughts about the episode or anything else, then please do drop us an email at hello@animalfreeresearchuk.org.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Josh, for joining us. And thank you all for listening. Have a lovely couple of weeks, and we'll be back in a fortnight. See you all then.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.